Hello and welcome to a short video where I'm going to show you how you can map your sensor values to any other value, do linear mappings, or use lookup tables to have a numerical value and put it into a string. So first of all, let's take a device here. So let's take the temperature server monitoring device and go into the configuration. In the configuration, if you scroll down a little bit, you see our database section. So here are all the fields that are being created on that device in the database and on which you can store the historical data. You can create additional fields and you can set the type to float, integer, Boolean, string, counter, and geolocation, which is GPS location. So let's take this battery field here, for example. The sensor is sending it as a voltage, so from 2 to 4 volts, and we can use a mapping field now. So I'm doing this once more to map this into percentage. So we call that battery percentage, and we select float, and the unit is percentage, and we select the source. I just said it comes from 2 and scales to 4 volts, and we scale that or map that to 0 and 100%. And you can now see that this is the mapping which is being created. So when it is at 2 volts, it outputs 0%, and when it is at 4 volts, it outputs 100%. You can also choose a boundary limit so that it won't go beyond 100 or below 0%. And you can also apply an offset. If you have like an analog sensor which has some drift, you can compensate that directly by using the offset. As I've already done this, you can see that the battery percentage here is already preset, and the sensor was sending 2.994 volts, which was converted into 49.7%. You can edit the mapping. And you can also see that there is a factor which you can use if you have a linear scaling by factor. I'm going to show you how this works. So let's take the voltage field once more, and let's assume you want to convert it to milliamps, to millivolts, which is a pretty easy example. So let's add another mapping field and call that battery millivolts. We leave it at 2, we could convert it to integer, we'll leave it at float, and the unit is millivolts. And instead of providing a linear scale, because it's just a conversion from volts to millivolts, we can use a factor here directly and multiply this simply by 1000. We save it, and you can see after a couple of seconds, because the field is now created on the back end, there is now a second mapping field, which is millivolts. And when we simulate, we can simulate the sensor sending some data by pressing set value. So let's simulate 2.995. We can see that it's converted into millivolts. So you could also do any conversion which you want to do here, and use these fields. But there's also lookup table. So let's assume you want the battery have 3 different states on the battery, like good, moderate, and low. And we're also doing this with that example with the battery field here. And let's create another mapping field, and the type is string. And when you choose string, the only options that you have is a lookup table, because numerical conversions between an integer or float to a string doesn't make any sense at all. So it's lookup table, and here you create 3 new input values. So when it is below or equal 2 volts, when it is below or equal 3 volts, and when it is below or above 4 volts, the battery state is good, it's moderate, and in this case, it's low. So we call that battery status. We don't need to supply a unit here, provide a unit here. We can also test that. So when it is 4 volt, it says good. When it is 3, because it's below 3, it's moderate. And when it's 2, it's low. So we save this. We can see we've got another mapping field here. And once more, we are going to simulate that 2.99 5 once more. And we can see it's moderate because, once more, when we go into that mapping, you see that when it is below or equal 3, it's moderate. So this way you can set up lookup tables or to convert numerical values into strings. You could also do this for Boolean, like once more, go into battery, add a mapping field, a Boolean in this case. Once more, Boolean is also just lookup table. We create 2 different lookup table entries, so below or equal 3 and below or equal 4. This is on and this is off, and we call that battery needs charging. Save this, and once more we're going to simulate this. Let's do it like 2.2, and here you can see battery needs charging is now on. This has been converted, and if we go into the dashboard now, we could also use this directly, like adding a Boolean field, select the battery needs charging, and supply text here, yes and no. And you can see you've got this battery needs charging, and also we're going to add the battery status here, which is moderate. And there you go. It's super easy to have like any LoRaWAN device just simply providing a single value for the battery and to use Datacake and the options like mapping fields to split that up into different things like millivolts or percentage or the status, or if it needs charging. Thanks for watching and stay tuned.